broadly.
Broadly. Hello everyone, welcome to iExamB. And today we have with us a very special guest, Dr. Sanjeev Sharma. Welcome, sir, on iExamB platform once again.
Good afternoon, everyone.
To give you a brief background, many of you already know, sir. Dr. Sanjeev Sharma is former executive director of National Housing Bank. He's also served as the CGM and regional director at RBI and went to NHB on deputation as the executive director. So welcome, sir, and thank you so much for taking out time to be with us today.
My pleasure, absolutely.
So, this year again, National Housing Bank is recruiting at the assistant managers level. And students have a lot of doubt about how this organization is and how working with NHB is like. So if you can throw some light on the organization NHB, it is one of the All India financial institutions. So how good is it working with NHB?
I think first we should have a little understanding of the organizational structure of the of NHB, because it's a in terms of scale, it's a smaller bank compared to any other financial institution. When I was there, we were about 130 staff officers. That was the strength, and I believe now it has risen up to about 150 plus. So still, in terms of the total strength of the organization, you compare it with Reserve Bank, you compare it with NABARD, the scale is much smaller. However, it is very officer-oriented, unlike the other organizations that we were talking about. RBI has the assistants, then you have the class for staff, which even NABARD has, for example. But NHB's special characteristic is it is typically what we call as an officer-centric organization. So it only recruits officers, and the other staff, the sub-staff as we can call it, that is on contract. Okay. So you don't have them pushing pens and putting up cases to you as it happens in other organizations where there are special assistants. These assistants generally, do the filing work and they're on contract. So also with the class for staff like peons and drivers and etc., everybody is on contract. So that is what it distinguishes this organization from others.
It's very interesting, sir. That means that the job profile and the work will be much more interesting here and much more exposure one may get.
Yes, you have to do a lot of things yourself. You can't be depending on someone to push up the case to you, as it may happen in other organizations. But of course, the role of the assistant manager becomes critical, because he or she is the initiator of cases. So everything begins from there, and they have to push the cases up. So they have to be very alert, and they have to know their stuff very well. So because their manager is going to be dependent on them, and on the AGM would depend on the manager. So ultimately, the buck stops at the assistant manager's level.
Okay. So if we can elaborate a bit, like you said, we have to do our work ourselves and the case have to be looked at. So what exactly is the profile here? What work are they doing?
So basically, you know that NHB is, as the name says, National Housing Bank. So it started off in, it was established in 1987 under the NHB Act. And at that point of time, it was a 100% subsidiary of the Reserve Bank.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it was a regulatory and supervisory body. Till about 2017, when the supervisory function remained with NHB. However, the regulatory function was taken over by the RBI. More so because ultimately the HFCs are also like the NBFCs. They do the same function. So they should have a common yardstick, except that the HFCs have a specialized niche sector where they cater to, unlike the NBFCs. So the regulatory function, that is continuous now with the RBI. That's a major change that has happened in NHB's structure. However, I would say that that doesn't lessen the role and importance of NHB in any manner. It's now on the lines of what you can say NABARD.
Yeah.
NABARD is also a supervisory body, and it has a lot of role to play and a lot of powers that it has. Similarly, the regulation remains now has come to RBI. However, the supervisory function continues to be performed by NHB officers. So there is a specialist department, Department of Supervision, where the officers are trained to go and carry out on-site and off-site inspection of the housing finance companies.
Yeah. So housing finance actually, I think, grew so much over the last 1 decade, especially after the government brought in the Housing for All scheme. So NHB has been a major refinancer. So what does it do exactly as a refinancer?
Yeah, so it has actually, other than supervision of the HFCs, it also does the finance function. But the finance again has two aspects to it. There is the refinance and there is the direct finance.
Direct finance. Okay.
So in refinance, of course, it refinances HFCs, which in turn are financing. So they need funds ultimately. When HFCs want to finance a housing project or a housing loan, they need funds. So where do they get the funds from? So those funds are taken from, given by the NHB
NHB.
as a refinance. And then you have direct finance, in which it caters to the project finance.
Okay.
So there are big projects, and these projects are maybe by the municipal corporations, state governments, slum boards, or developmental bodies. They are the ones who are beneficiaries of direct finance.
Okay. Okay. So we have both the finance function and the development function that is being
And we also have the promotion function,
promotion function.
where you have a lot of studies are done by NHB, and you have Residex.
Yes, they introduced Residex few years back, right?
Absolutely. So it is the housing property index, which is in there, but they have revamped it in 2018. So now the scope is much wider, and it is very informative.
Yeah, it does provide some kind of benchmarking of housing prices in our country. Otherwise, it was an informal kind of a market, no standard pricing system.
Not only
There.
housing, but also building material, for example.
Building materials, yes.
Yeah, and rentals.
Rentals so important. Otherwise, again, there's no standard about rentals. And
time, one shouldn't think that because this is what NHB Residex says, that would actually be, in the market would be a little at variance with that, but it gives you an idea about the graph.
At least, yeah. At least how at least it's a start of some kind of formalization being brought in the country.
Yes. And it is used by the government and by the research bodies and students and even housing finance companies. They do depend on it.
Yeah. So like you did mention that it is an officer's recruitment mostly in at NHB that is done. And as of now, they are currently recruiting at the assistant manager level. So what's the career progression like? How up can a student or a candidate or an officer go in the organization?
Well, there have been instances where in the past, the officers who joined as managers, perhaps, they became the MDs also.
Okay.
And many people from Reserve Bank, when NHB was set up, there was a time when they were given an option to join NABARD, NHB. So those officers who came, some of them retired as general managers. Some of them became, one or two, I think, became the managing director also. So what happens is that you begin with assistant manager first. Then, the structure is the same as you find in commercial banks: assistant manager, and then deputy manager, then manager,
AGM,
regional manager, AGM, general manager, etc. And it goes to general manager. At the manager level, then the next promotion, the pyramid becomes very, very narrow. And there are only 2 vacancies for the executive director's posts. So of the GMs, earlier it was that one ED was from the NHB itself and the other was from the Reserve Bank. But since the NHB now is not under the Reserve Bank anymore, the NHB has given up its share. RBI has given up its stake in NHB. So the RBI representative is not there. So the ED is recruited from within and from without, which means it's an open market
Oh,
competition.
okay. So, like you mentioned, sir, the EDs are also coming from outside. What if I talk about the career prospects a candidate may have after joining NHB and outside NHB? Say, because the pyramid does get narrow, everybody cannot become an ED or an MD. But after getting experience in NHB, I'm sure it also opens up a lot of career prospects outside of NHB. So, how value additive can their experience at
It's a
NHB be?
I think I've seen officers from NHB going out midway change in their careers, and even at the general manager level, you have officers who are now in good positions in other bodies. Uh, and with the background that you get here, even you can work. Sometimes the HFCs also uh,
Right.
like to take you with them. And post retirement, of course, again, the field is open. You have very few people who are having an experience of Reserve Bank and NHB or supervisory function. So compliance is a major concern these days of every
True.
organization. Uh, Therefore, there is a good scope for people who join NHB, even if they want to have a mid-career change, they would certainly do very well.
Wow, that's great. So let's talk about a few questions also we got from students. Everybody is interested in to know about the salary and the perks. So salary is something they already state at grade A level what it will be. What are the additional perks and benefits that they get?
Well, the NHB gives you all kinds of benefits that any other organization in the banking sector gives you. So you get say. So it's, as I said, it's a smaller organization. Therefore, we have limited centers. The offices, head office is in Delhi, New Delhi, and very nice premises. You have India Habitat, one of the best buildings that you can get in the city. And
Mhm.
the advantage of being in NHB, which is situated in India Habitat Center, is that you have access to all the activities of India Habitat, including uh, the various restaurants and
Yeah.
library and gym. Those facilities are there, and you can get a membership card through NHB, and so that's an added advantage. Uh, Other than that, you have good housing. So the bank gives you housing, either it's bank's own colonies or
Mhm.
on lease. So Bombay, Mumbai, and Delhi, these are the two major centers where the offices are big offices, I would
Big
say.
offices are there.
Delhi being the head office, so the say 80% of the staff would be there.
Okay.
And then Bombay operations, Mumbai operations rather, uh, it is headed by a DGM.
Okay.
It's a smaller office with about say 10, 12 staff, but it does the treasury operations there and in a supervision function also. We have apartments for officers there. You also have smaller offices, what they call as the representative offices, which are headed by either the regional manager or the manager also sometimes at
Management.
smaller centers like Bhubaneswar and Ahmedabad and
All the major, it will be major cities only. If in the states, it will
all
be
the cities, but some of the major cities,
major cities.
not everywhere. You won't find it everywhere. And you won't find it, for example, in Chhattisgarh, and you won't find it in
Yeah,
Jharkhand, the newer states.
newer states. True.
Certainly in West Bengal and in Bangalore and Chennai and Ahmedabad, Lucknow.
So, if I'm understanding it right, so in terms of the work profile and challenges and the responsibilities one may get at even the manager level if you are good and all, because that's the perks also of being in a relatively smaller organization. You get exposure and responsibilities much earlier in your career as compared to say a bigger organization. So that is there. Great. And so you did mention, like, of course it is known that in NHB the head office is in Indian Habitat Center. I have visited it myself, and just for the benefit of some of the students who may not be aware or know Delhi as a place themselves, I can recall the shooting of Rang De Basanti, one of the scenes which relates to the amphitheater scene, actually has been done in the Indian Habitat Center. So just giving a view of which place sir is talking about, where the office of NHB is. So, like you mentioned, 80% of the staff is in the Delhi office itself. So, how is the transfer policy like? Do people frequently get transferred at all from one place to the other within the
Well,
organization?
I would say is a little, it's a good advantage NHB has because since the major staffs is situated in one center, so transfers are far and few.
Mhm.
However, sometimes it is the role of the CVC also guidelines that there should be movement of officers, and they should not be in one place for more than 3 years. So what happens is that normally they rotate them within the Delhi head office itself, giving them a different department to change. And sometimes for career progression, when you get promotion, then you will be asked to go ahead, and it's a good challenge because being these offices are small, maybe one officer and one staff, a contract staff, and one two contract staff at best. So you have to do a lot of liaison work. You have to be in touch with Reserve Bank. You have to be in touch with the state government. Uh, when the SLBC meetings are held, they have to do a lot of coordination, and they are in touch with the HFCs because they have to look for refinance. Um, Therefore, I would say that it gives you, as you rightly said earlier, that very early in life, you get more responsibilities.
So,
Especially when you go out, when you move out of the head office. In the head office, you are in a good department like supervision or project finance or refinance, or excellent departments to work in, and you learn a lot.
right. So if you want to learn, if you have a good bent towards finance job and a government job with a good salary package with a lot of perks, and if you have, inclined towards less kind of transfers in within a government job, I think NHP is a great opportunity for you all to apply. So one question a student is asking about the work-life balance. I think indirectly sir has mentioned it, but explicitly, if we have to say about the work-life balance in NHP.
Because work-life balance, the HR people have made it so popular.
Yeah.
There is nothing called work-life balance when you start working because ultimately you have to take a call. Sometimes you have to decide that the work is more important than the balance, and sometimes you think you need a balance and the work can take a backseat. So by and large, yes, there is pressure because there are less number of people, and because it is situated in New Delhi, so the ministry is very nearby, and they are always breathing down your neck for data and for information and for all kinds of in housing related matters. So there will be pressure on you, no doubt about it. But it's not that you would be kind of not getting any time to spend time with your family, or you reach home at around 10 o'clock in the night. No, no, it's not like that. But yes, you do sit late. Office closes at quarter to 6. Doesn't mean necessarily that you would pack up your bags and leave, because if you have work on the table, it's expected that you would work there. And if the ED wants you to sit, and because he himself is working or she's sitting late, staff also has to, officers do sit late because some documents may be required, some discussion happens. So it's there like in any other organization. That kind of pressure will be there.
True. And so, like, how you started now, the work-life balance has become very famous by the HR people. If you enjoy our work, we don't really have to look for that balance. And plus, as you rightly said, if there is a responsibility, willingly it comes, and one is able to complete it there. And in a nutshell, if in the concrete sense in which the students are asking, if I may take the liberty to answer that, like in any other government organization, you have good enough time to enjoy your life with your family, spend good quality time. So I think, in one word, yes, there is good work life balance, if I may say so, or sir, on your behalf, that ways. So okay, so one student is asking Manjusha that her home city is Hyderabad. Is it possible to get Hyderabad posting?
Yes, NHB has an office in Hyderabad, and if you make a request, they are quite open to it. depending on the vacancy. Of course, they can't push somebody out. So
Mhm.
normally, what happens is when in smaller centers, if somebody's already there on a request transfer, because he or she happens to have a family there, and then somebody comes in new and says, "I want Hyderabad." Either they create a vacancy or they move somebody out. So depending on the circumstances, but they do accommodate.
They do
I've seen
accommodate.
it, in many cases as ED when I had HR and admin with me. We
Mhm.
did accede to the request to the extent possible. Maybe if not today, after we'll keep it in mind. And 2 to 3 months down the line, 4 months down the line, when a vacancy arises, we can send you there.
True. So yes, such requests sir has mentioned also, and various other organizations, government also, a few other discussions we have had. This is common that if there is vacancy, there is a possibility of this being considered. It cannot be promised, but it can be considered. So this is there. So they're also asking about how the salary and CTC gets into. Although indirectly we've talked about grade A level salary one gets, and with so many other perks that you are eligible for and
Yeah,
the benefits, the CTC goes high enough
yeah,
for
that's
a
right.
comfortable life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have all kinds of loans. You have a car loan, you have a housing loan, you have grants, and so it's like any other bank. You have those
Yeah.
facilities. You have a good lounge. You can get good food, which everyone does. So the extra coupons, I think they used to give at that one point of time.
Okay.
And there's a lot of celebration within the organization. That's what
Okay.
I liked about it. That being a very close knit organization of less number of people. So Christmas and Diwali, these kind of functions are really celebrated in a big way. It's
Mhm.
very colorful, and a lot of fun happens. So that adds to the working environment.
Working environment, and somebody like they were asking about the work-life balance. So there's good
It
that yes, you will feel included and you will feel at home working there. So
And then, as you said, theater. So
mhm.
NHB conducts environmental quizzes, there every
Okay.
year on World Environment Day. In that amphitheater that you referred to, we get a professional quiz master, and it's open to all the not just NHB but all the
All
working staff of India Happiness Center.
okay. Okay.
So that's a very
That's
interesting.
nice. That's nice. So that brings me to another question. What about education opportunities? Can one do PhD or any other kind of education once with NHP?
Yes, indeed, I have seen officers who've done their PhD there, and officers who pursued MBA and higher studies. They are allowed to do that. They get an NOC and they do some work. So that facility is there.
Okay. And any kind of work in NHP that leads to any international postings or any international exposure?
Well, there is no posting per se, international posting. However, NHB does have a good training program, and officers attend a lot of conferences overseas. So
Okay.
it could be in the US, it could be in Southeast Asia. So wherever there's a housing conference happening, representatives do go. And I remember when I was there, I had gone to Kuala Lumpur, and I had taken along with me two managers.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had it was like one manager was working in Calcutta. He was very good.
Mhm.
Sometimes it comes as a reward also. If you're a good
Right.
worker and you catch the attention that yeah, this guy is dedicated and is working hard, and let's reward him in some manner. So the senior would like to accompany, or they can be sent independently at the senior level.
Okay, that's great, right? So ultimately, it boils down to if you are good enough, the opportunities will come in. So there is scope for such opportunities, both in India and different states, and also in terms of the work and responsibilities one may get. So
There's a lot of travel involved sometimes. When you
okay,
supervise, the HFCs are spread all over the country. So officers are there on inspection duties. They go to different cities. They go on to various outreach programs. Awas Yojana, for example. So
yeah.
a lot of outreach, and we went to different states, right from Kashmir to Kerala, I would say, and interacted with the chief secretaries of the states, with the ministers of the working committees, give inputs on housing for all. So there's a lot of scope.
Okay. So one question, although we do know that NHB is now mostly the supervisor and the development authority for the housing finance and the housing sector in the country, but initially they did have the regulation under them. And with the regulatory function now going away from them, does it bring down the charm of the job at all?
That's a good question, and which I think we did touch upon it in the beginning. That even though the regulatory function has been done away with, taken away from NHB, however, the supervisory function by itself is a very strong tool, and as I said, you can compare it with NABARD.
Right.
NABARD. So when you supervise today, there are about 74 HFCs with having a net worth of more than 100 crores, and the licenses are still registration is not issued by NHB, but supervision work is very important, and without good supervision, the system will collapse. So I agree, as you say, that regulatory function is not there. A little bit of glamour has gone off, perhaps, because you are a regulator and a supervisor. However, as a supervisor, you think on the lines of NABARD, and that should put you in the right light.
Right. So I think so. This was very, very insightful and helpful, and I'm sure it has encouraged students to apply. The application window has been opened. It is open, and one should definitely, if you are eligible, we have done separate sessions related to eligibility and experience that is required. It doesn't require an experience. In fact, the eligibility and the exam pattern has been discussed in detail by Anshul sir. So you can watch that video. And if you are eligible, I will request all of you to definitely go and apply for this exam, and wishing you all the best for that. Thank you, sir, so much for taking out time, being with us, for this conversation, and so candidly answering all the queries related to the NHB career to the students.
I'm here, and I hope whatever inputs I've been able to give to the active candidates here who are planning to, or thinking about, yes, you should apply for the job and study hard for that. All the very best to you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you.